want you to think of your worst employee, the person who's lazy, they don't show up on time, but they don't actually get their work done, they're inefficient. What if I told you that that person was actually your fault that they acted that way? Why? Because you hired and trained them. So today's video is going to be about all the things that happen after the moment you hire someone to ensure that they're successful and you retain them. So there's really three things that go into fulfilling on your promises made when you've hired somebody: onboarding, expectations, and context. At the end of this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you guys through how we onboard teammates at acquisition.com. So let's start with expectations, okay? Expectations are simply the verbalization of how you would like something done. Let's look at a common example. When you tell your kid to make their bed, it's like, Johnny, go make your bed, right? He might make the bed and it might look like shit, right? Because he made the bed, but it's all frivoled, like the pillows are everywhere. Technically it's made, but it doesn't look that great. Or you could say, Johnny, go make your bed like a 5-star hotel would make your bed. And then it looks nice, the sheets are all spread out, there's no wrinkles, the pillows are fluffed, and it looks great. That's the difference in how we verbalize expectations to people. When most people come in, even when you hire someone who's experienced, they're still playing the game based off the rules of their last job. And so until you set expectations that are different and then reinforce those expectations, they're gonna just continue doing what they've always done. And say you hire someone from corporate, they're often told to be quiet during meetings. And so they're often punished for speaking up during meetings. Whereas if you hire that person, bring them into your company and you're a small team, you want them to speak up. And so they might come in and at first they might not be talking at all. And what that tells you is not that that person is shy. It tells you that that person has been punished for speaking up. And so what you want to do is reinforce them speaking up if that's a behavior you want. The easiest way to do this is to first set the expectation of what you want, to verbalize it, to add it in the job description, to explain it to them, and then to follow up with encouraging them when they are meeting expectations. Unfortunately, what happens most of the time is that a company hires a person. They sell the person on this big grandiose vision of how amazing this role is, how amazing the company is, because they're just desperate for this person to say yes. They tell them they get flexible work, working hours, oh, you don't need to answer on weekends, all these things. And then what happens is that person comes in and then they see, oh, you do expect me to work until late at night. Oh, you do want me working weekends. Oh, people aren't that nice here. Oh, you do want me to take on this huge project that wasn't part of my role. And even if that person might have agreed to those things on the front end, the fact that you didn't set the expectations properly, now it's a negative. So you've taken a neutral experience and you've made it a negative simply not by letting them know ahead of time. There's the line, which is neutral, right? They're just getting what they expected. There's below the line, which is where most companies go. Now they're feeling badly about the role. They're regretting their decision. They're feeling like, maybe I should have stayed at my last job. Now, what do you do to get above the line? Well, to stay at the line, we want job expectations to match job conditions, right? So what you say the role is exactly what the role is. They're happy that things are the way they expect. If job expectations are better than job conditions, then you get somebody who's discontent. But if you can create job conditions that are better than job expectations, that's when you get somebody who's really excited about the decision and feels really great about the decision that they made to join your company. So the question is, you can do one of two things. You can either lessen the expectations you set. So you can actually make the job sound worse than it is. I'm not saying a ton worse. I'm saying 5% worse. Or you can increase conditions once they come in. So you could say these are the expectations, and then you could find a way to over-deliver on how great the job is. In my opinion, the best thing to do is to set expectations 5% worse than they actually are. So when I know that somebody's coming in and there's like a lot of work that has to be done in the department, I basically tell them, oh my gosh, there's nothing in place, there's no infrastructure, it's a shit show, you're gonna have to do so much cleanup. I try to make it sound worse than it is, mostly because I want their expectations to be properly set. And then often what happens is they come in and they're like, okay, I'm ready, like I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be a big undertaking, it's gonna be rewarding. And then they come to me and they say, Layla, oh my gosh, it's not nearly as bad as you said. And I'm like, oh, is it not? You know, I thought it was pretty bad. And they're like, no, you've actually done a great job with all these things. And so we've taken what could be a negative and turned it into a positive just by how we frame the expectation. If you want to eliminate churn, here are the 5 things that I do to create the bridge between what they understand and what is reality. The first is an accurate and well thought out job description. If they click on the ad for this job description, they're looking for what you've listed there, not something 50% different. And so if they come in and it's completely different than the job description, that right there is a negative. The second is consistently repeating the same message in every interview. So one thing that I want to make sure is done in every interview is we set expectations. What does the business do? And what does this role do within the business? because I want them to understand how their role connects with other pieces of the business. And I want to know that we've said it not once, not twice, but minimum 3 times to the person. They really get it. They're crystal clear on what needs to happen. The third piece is setting 30, 60, 90-day goals. They're really just the agreements of the progress that's going to be made within that time period. I like to collaborate with somebody on this, because if I really want someone to come in and have autonomy over their role, am I just gonna push work at them and say, this is what you do? Or am I gonna say, hey, I'm not a creative director or a director of people or a director of customer success, so I don't know if this is possible. Do you think these timelines, these things are possible? And so if we can set expectations before they even come in of what we want to accomplish in 30, 60, and 90 days, then they know what to expect, and we create predictability in their mind. And then when we've created predictability, you create even more security in their job. The fourth thing that you want to do is you want to discuss problems ahead of time. What you don't want to have happen is that you explain all the things they're going to do, but you don't explain the problems that are currently going on in the department or that their role would be solving. And so they come in and they're going to be doing the activities you outlined, but there's problems that exist that they didn't know about. And so it feels like a negative because they weren't aware. You want to think through, what are the problems that this person is going to observe when they come into this role in the company, and how can I let them know about those ahead of time, and maybe even start collaborating with them on how they could solve them. And then the last place is a proper new hire orientation. Just like you onboard a customer for a product, you want to onboard an employee for a job. So there's probably 2 pieces to this, which is a general onboarding, where you're giving them contextual knowledge of the business, and then a technical onboarding, which is how you onboard them to this role specifically within the business. I promise you, if you can do those 5 things, you are much less likely to have an employee churn, to lose people in the first 30 days. But I think a lot of the times what we do is we say, well, I hired this person, they have this experience, so like, I shouldn't have to do all this work to make sure that they're gonna stick. But the reality is this is not that way. The same title in Sally's Bake Shop is gonna be completely different than like Joe's marketing company. These things really matter, and what we wanna focus on the most is keeping expectations clear, setting them properly on the front end, and making sure that conditions and expectations match. So the second thing that we wanna do, now that we've covered setting expectations, is we wanna cover context. What is the context somebody needs coming into the company to be successful? What circumstances does this person need to know about in order to do the job well? Why does this job exist? If you give people context as to why the job exists, they're more likely to help you in a strategic way. In one of our portfolio companies, we were trying to build what you could say a brand. And so we brought in an editor to make videos for their Instagram. That editor wasn't onboarded properly. And so they started making like super clickbaity videos. These videos got millions of views, but they actually did the opposite for the brand. They showcased it in not the best light. Because of that, the leaders are saying, oh my gosh, this person isn't the right fit. And I said, well, did you tell them that the reason that we hired them was because we wanted to build a brand? They were like, well, I feel like that's obvious. So we had the conversation with the editor. Did you know that we want to build a brand? We want to showcase this reputation, how amazing, blah, blah. He's like, oh, no. I just thought you wanted to get more views. Because in his last job, what did they want from him? They wanted him to build videos that got views. That's why it's so important to have that contextual knowledge, because he knew how to do the role, but he didn't have the context to which why the role existed. So there's really 2 kinds of context. There is company-specific, and then there's role-specific context. Company-specific context. Why does this company exist? Where is this company going? What are the values of this company? How does this company behave? How do we hire people? How do we fire people? How do we hold people to expectations? What are our goals? What are we focused on this year? What are we focused on this quarter? Who are the leaders in this company? Who are the people that make decisions? How does the company celebrate? How does the company improve? How does the company learn? And what are our philosophies around things like pay, benefits, etc.? I know it sounds like, wow, that's so much. I know. This is why building a company is hard, because it is a lot. So what I've done is I've created what I call like our vision deck. And that deck I update every quarter, and then every quarter I can give that to HR, and then they can put that into our onboarding so that people can go through that deck and they get all the company context plus some more. Let's say you don't have an HR department that can do onboarding for you. I think that one of the best things the founder can do is do the company context onboarding. You meet with them and you tell them, what's the vision, what's the mission, here's the quarterly goals, and you run them through those things. Now, if you're bigger and you do have, say, an HR department or someone who's head of people and you have functional leaders, then it makes sense that they then learn how to do that themselves. Now, on the other side, you have role-specific context. So it's gonna be the job description. What are the expectations of the department? So what KPIs do we track of this department that you're in? What's the current workflow that this job adheres to? What systems are we using for this department? What cadence of meetings do we have? What KPIs is this role held to? And what technology do we use to get the job done? package. Those are all role specific. Most employees want to do really well, and most of them can make good decisions if they have the same knowledge as you. But what happens most of the time is that we withhold all this knowledge from people, not on purpose, but because we're lazy and we just don't feel like relaying that knowledge. But if we can get it all out of our heads, then we can empower people to make better decisions, not just in their role, but for the company overall. By the way, if you don't have a business, and maybe you're at a job, maybe you're not at a job, maybe you're looking for a job, we have this thing called Mosey Talent. You get first dibs at all the jobs open in our portfolio at acquisition.com and at acquisition.com itself. The last piece to ensuring that you can successfully retain talent and employees is really onboarding. Philosophically, how I see it is that onboarding should mirror the future of the role. A lot of the times, onboarding and the way that you manage somebody during onboarding is very different than you manage them for the rest of the time that they're with you. And that's why a lot of people can make it through the first 30, 60, or 90 days, but they can't make it thereafter because then their behavior changes because your behavior has changed. What is the environment that this person's going to be operating in? Are they going to be doing the same thing every day? Are they going to have a lot of support? Or are they going to be doing different things every day and they're not going to have a lot of support? You want the onboarding to mirror how much support you're going to be giving them later on. So what a lot of people do is they build out this really beautiful onboarding for 1 week, and then they just throw them into the fire after that. If the reality of the job is you need somebody who can just deal with the fire, then tell them that from the beginning, onboard them that way, basically have them self-onboard, and then set that expectation, hire for that. But what a lot of people do is they kind of sugarcoat it, and then they bring somebody in who needs more assistance, and then after a week or two, they're like, I can't do this anymore, this is all I've got. And then that person flounders. If that person is going to have a lot of support, then give them a lot of support in onboarding. If that person isn't going to have a lot of support, then give them less support in onboarding. So at acquisition.com, we do a couple of other things that really help, especially because we're a remote team, to onboard people and make them feel really welcomed and set good expectations. The first thing is that every person that comes on gets to meet with all the leaders. We're not some mega corporation, and I think that one of the biggest advantages that people have if they work here is they get to communicate with leadership. They get to get mentorship, they get to learn from people, and it's like an open door policy. The second thing that we do is we send a swag package. So one thing you'll notice, we don't sell right now acquisition.com swag, and so we have exclusive swag for everyone that works with us. The third thing is that I will meet with everybody on the team who's new. If I've interviewed them, I meet with them 3 or 4 weeks later to see how it's gone. If I didn't interview them, then I'll meet them in week 2, typically. And then outside of that, I would say the team welcoming people and offering time, offering guidance, offering recognition to new people has been one of the most powerful things that you can do. A huge welcome in Slack. We do a welcome slide on the weekly meeting, and we try to celebrate the fact that they joined the team. So these are all the things you want to focus on after you've hired somebody. But if you feel gosh, I don't even know how to hire people, then I made this video here for those of you who are trying to figure out how to hire on my $100 million hiring strategy.